Taliah Lamont is a London-based freelance video producer who recently graduated from MetFlim School in Ealing with a master's degree in producing for film and television. Born in Khobar, Saudi Arabia, and raised in Leeds, England, Taliah was surrounded by the arts and cinema since she was a child. This passion carried her through education, as she starred in musicals and plays and participated in collaborating with older students on business films for both of her high schools. This would lead to her decision to attend a BA film production course at Middlesex University in London, where her short films, such as Potty and Chopsticks, would win awards and be shown at festivals internationally. Currently, she focuses her own style on individual ideas with strong emotional connections and relatable stories. Additionally, she hopes to push more LGBT+ characters and stories into the industry and shine a light on the community. Listen to this episode to get a sneak peek into the behind the scenes of Taliah's successful short films, discover more about pitching projects to have them commissioned, and get inspired by her story as a hardworking, enthusiastic, and optimistic student. Enjoy! Hello Taliah, thank you for joining us today and welcome to the show.
Hi, it's fantastic to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
It's a pleasure. Can you please introduce yourself?
So my name is Taliah Lamont. I am a filmmaker based in London, currently doing short films. I like to do lots of action comedies, stuff that's just exciting and funny and different. But I'm currently working on a few TV pilots, which should hopefully, get picked up off the ground soon. But as the TV industry is, we're just going to have to work hard and see if we can get it.
Yeah, fingers crossed. So what's your position on those TV pilots?
So I'm producing. Every role that I do in my work, I'll be a producer.
Oh, wow,
So
that sounds exciting.
Projects and ideas. Oh, yeah, it's fantastic.
So it's not like some smaller role in the background. It's actually one of the biggest ones.
Oh, yeah. I'm really, really excited about it. I've been working with a couple of writers on a current concept we've got, which I'll try not to disclose too much on. But it's an absolutely fantastic experience producing for TV. It's so invigorating and it's so fantastic. It's lovely to be able to concentrate on things like this. It's currently what I'm working on right now is like a Channel 4 young adult sort of a sitcom about living in the queer world. There's obviously a little bit more to that. Well, it's called LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and Tom. It's a really cute, daft little concept. Great guy living with gay people and being completely out of his depth and just trying his best to be a good ally. And yeah, it was just a silly, daft concept, but it's been so fun developing it with my writers into something tangible, into something real.
So what stage are you currently in?
We're currently in the very fun stage of trying to pitch it. We have the pitch deck made. It's just been trying to get back in contact, really. I've got a few contacts in various broadcasters, but being able to arrange meetings and that nowadays is a nightmare.
Is it because they are very busy or a lot of people want to pitch to them?
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Of course, lots of people want to pitch them as well. But even like my direct contacts in companies, they are so busy at the moment. It is such an exciting time for the industry right now. There's so much stuff being made, but it's also been really limiting in people's time. You have to be much more selective now about who you talk to and when, because everyone's got something to do all the time.
So if you reach out to them, based on what do they decide if they let you to pitch it to them? Is it like elevator pitch or based on that you know each other?
So with this particular contact, they're head of productions for a UK broadcaster. I won't say who, just in case someone tries to look it up. But I worked with them May of last year, May 2022, worked in their company for a bit, got to know them quite well. And I've been getting back in contact with them. I did a little bit of an elevator pitch with them on our first meeting together. But before we were going to move on into an official pitching stage, I'll be passed on to their script writing and development team. And I'll run the ideas past them. We'll make sure that everything suits it, that everything's feeling good, and that it suits the broadcasters' sort of content, the stuff that they like to release. And then we would go forward. I mean, actually, it'd be back to the head of productions, back to my contact to do an official pitch. but she's also helping me develop it, which is pretty nice.
Is it something you are excited about or are you nervous about?
Oh yeah, it's nerve-wracking for sure. Luckily, she's really lovely, but yeah, it's absolutely terrifying putting ideas out there. It's absolutely frightening because you just want people to like it.
You need to sell it.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, luckily she's really good. We have a nice relationship at this point, and it's making it a little easier, but
You get a bit of advantage over the competition. If there is someone else who wants to pitch it, they probably don't have such a relationship, so it may be something that may be helpful for you.
oh yeah, that's what I'm hoping, because it is so tricky nowadays when it comes to networking and contacts and stuff. So much more's done over the internet now, thanks to lockdown and COVID and all that fun jazz. Things like networking events aren't as full as they used to be. With people's schedules getting busier, sometimes there's not as many high advantage contacts going to these events. So it can be a little bit harder, like pushing your elbows in and trying to get your foot in the door. It's something that, yeah, if you still keep persevering with it, then you will find the contacts. It's just, oof, it's just one of those things.
Cannot give up. And would the actual pitching be in person or also online?
Ideally, I'd have it in person. I really love pitching. It's actually one of my favorite parts of my job is trying to sell an idea. I get really excited and passionate about my ideas. And I feel like that comes across better in person than online. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if they asked me to do it online, then I wouldn't question it. But
yeah.
I like to be, I much prefer to be there in person. And hopefully that's what will be set up for this one, is I'll be able to be with the execs in the room and I can talk to them face to face.
Yeah, so it sounds like you've done it already. So how much experience have you got with pitching?
I've got a load.
Really?
I've had to pitch for every single short film I've done. Yeah, none of the projects were greenlit off of the bat. I always had to get them pitched. And even then, I just really like public speaking.
Oh, you like it?
Yeah, I really, really enjoy public speaking.
I think that's a great advantage for you as well, because I feel like that most of the people are rather scared of public speaking, which to me is quite understandable. So it sounds great, yeah.
Oh, it's so fun. I'm still one of those people who likes to like proper plan in advance. Like riffing on the fly is not something that I do with great confidence. I still like to plan out what I'm going to say, but it definitely helps that I like to pitch and present and speak like that anyway. God, I can't imagine doing this job without that.
And can you say that with this experience, do you still get nervous when it comes to that, or are you okay with it?
Oh, definitely. Obviously, there's nervousness in my ability. I always, I don't want to mess it up. I don't want to make a fool of myself. I want to do a good job, all that jazz. But a lot of the nervousness just comes from like, do they like the idea? Is this good? Like, I spent so much time on it. Like, to me, it's my baby, but they like looking at it like, ugh, no, get out. So that's where the nerves tend to lie.
And can you say, out of those projects that you pitched, maybe what was like the percentage of successful ones?
I mean, not to brag, but I've had all of my short films greenlit. There's only a couple that haven't, but that's because they're currently in development.
Okay. Well, what can I say? Probably either well-developed films or great pitches or a great person who is pitching that. So very well done, yeah.
It's a mix of all three, to be honest. I mean, I don't consider myself great, like any creative. The imposter syndrome is strong. But there's the confidence in that, like, I've had stuff greenlit before, I can do it again. The writers I've worked with are really good. I really love their work. That'll be a huge boost. I have great faith in this idea. It's something that multiple people have told me they liked. So hopefully all of that put together translates into those nice, big pocket money bag holding executives to go, yes, we'll make that.
Yeah, and it also sounds like something that helps you to build some kind of credibility, because maybe if you tell them that you've already pitched several films that were greenlit, it definitely gives you also a competitive advantage over someone who's never done it and it's the first time.
Oh, definitely. Like any part of hiring a new person in any sort of industry, you want to have confidence in their previous history and confidence in the things they've done before. So having that backlog of green lights is definitely very advantageous.
Yeah. And with those short films before, was it also for some television, or who are you pitching to?
So most of the pitching that I've done so far is for short films. I've done several pitches for TV, but all of my short films were greenlit. Those were the ones, mainly done between like 2017 and 2023, sometime in that. Yeah.
So does that mean that they provided you investment, or they showed it on TV, or?
So partially, once the project was greenlit, we still had to do a decent amount of funding, but in most of those cases, there was equipment, there was crew, didn't have to worry about paying for that sort of thing. With the people I was working with, we were lucky enough to have a lot of other great contacts we could take advantage of and be able to get things a little bit cheaper, or even just taking the time and the due diligence when you're talking to someone who owns a location or talking to someone who has something that you might need but for a slightly cheaper rate, is just being good at the negotiation game. It's difficult as a creative if you're stubborn. Some creators are very stubborn and have been very successful. I want to say Quentin Tarantino, but the stubbornness can also cripple you unless you're a Tarantino.
Yeah. But maybe later on, once you've got your name established, you can be like that as well.
Oh yeah, once you've got your name established, you can definitely be more selective.
Yeah. I wonder, before you said that you've already got some context, but who did you speak to when you started? Because back then you probably didn't have any context. So who did you reach out to, or how did you start?
So one of them was through university. My second year short film, Potty the Plant, that one's available online. I can talk about that one.
I feel like I may have seen it, actually.
We attended the same university, didn't we?
Yeah, so I think they showed it to us. It was like a musical, right?
Yeah, short comedy musical with the singing potted plant and the evil doctor. And
I will share the link like in the show notes so that people...
Oh, definitely. It's ever so fun. I know a lot of people probably haven't seen it, but it's, especially for my first official short film, I was dead proud of it. It was lovely and a fantastic production as well. I was producer.
Also producer. So it sounds like your whole career has been producing.
Those are my main projects. I have done production assistant work, location managing. I've helped with casting on other ones. Those have been, projects that I've done I've only had to be a part of like a week or two, a couple of months. Yeah, the bulk of my work, of my experience is through my own productions.
Sorry for interruption.
Oh, no worries. The first contact was through Potty the Plan. We'd screened it at university, and the creative director of our courses, she had contacts at Channel 4. She invited the CEO of Channel 4's wife to the screening, and she saw Potty the Plan, and she was like, oh my God, this is fantastic. It's so funny and so creative. I'm going to show this to my husband. And it's like, oh, you're going to show this to the CEO of Channel 4. Like, both a sense of incredible pride and just massive fear. Like being pushed onto train tracks where it's like, boom, now you've got this light on you. And it's like, oh my God.
And imagine being in the second year of uni. It's like a great achievement.
Yeah, right. I was still focused on I've got a degree to finish, right? Like, I can't just pull out of that to do a TV show, or can I? Like, it was so weird, but it was absolutely hilarious. I never expected it. But I was lucky enough to go to a great uni.
So what was the reaction then? Did you get some kind of feedback, or they got back to you, or you kept in touch with them?
So for the most part, we've kept in touch. The project itself, Potty the Plant, is a brilliant short film. I'm really happy with the short film. But translating it to TV is difficult.
I would like to make it into a TV series.
To make it into a TV series is one of those things where we would either have to remove the musical element, which we didn't want to do. We thought it was a big part of who it was, and we were having ideas of we'll put Potty the Plant on like a pirate ship. We can have an episode of Potty the Pirate. And like we even drafted a couple of songs for that. But if we didn't remove the music, then it couldn't really be an episodic thing, because it's like you can't really have a connected series of musicals. There was a cop procedural show in the 80s that was made that was a musical. The first 2 episodes did great, and it tanked after that. It was the example I was given when it's like, okay, if we're going to make this into a TV show, we should know that other people have tried and it did not succeed. However, I have also developed 2 pitch decks in case Potty the Plant ever wanted to be a TV show.
So was it back then or like sometime recently?
So the first initial like conversations of turning Potty into a TV show happened in 2019, I think, 2018 to 2019. In that case, it was a situation of just like talking to these contacts, and they were like, oh, this is really fun, but we're not too sure. We need further developed ideas to have a little bit more confidence. And it's like, that's fair. Yeah, we'll take this away. We'll develop it a little further. And then it was while we were trying to develop it that we started to hit those sort of marks of like, oh, we really want this to work, but something's not clicking yet. And that was sort of what halted Potty for a while. It was so difficult to adapt. We really wanted it to work with TV, but it was really difficult to strike the balance and make it marketable.
So what's the current situation around it now? Do you have it somewhere in back of your mind that maybe one day, or what is it like?
Oh, Potty's always going to have a special place in my heart. The first short film I made, and it was successful. Like, people liked it, and it did well in film festivals, and like the contacts Channel 4, that was fantastic. Nothing will ever take that from me. Potty's in the hand of the original writers now. They're currently developing him in the theatre circuit. There's a Potty the Plant show that's going to be performed at the Fringe Festival this year. So that should be pretty fun. And obviously, because he's a puppet, that's really well suited to theatre work. One of the inspirations while developing the TV show was a comedian puppet called Randy Feltface. He's just a purple orb of a puppet with hands. And he's Australian, and he could be any other comedian. Like, his sets do not revolve around him being a puppet at all. But yeah, they don't revolve around him being a puppet at all, but he's really funny.
Remind me, what is the name?
Randy Feltface.
Okay, I will have a look.
Give it a Google. He's got some great sets. And I'm hoping that Potty does the same.
Oh, I see. Like, quite a simple look, but looks funny at the same time.
Exactly.
Yes,
even does audience work, even though the guy who's obviously underneath the table can't see the audience.
Yeah.
It's real clever.
Yeah, and why did you actually decide for musical? It's quite rare, isn't it?
Yeah, it's actually so the writers itself, because they came to me with the idea. No, I found out the idea, and I approached them. But their reasoning for it was just like, well, they were super into there was Rocky Horror Picture Show, there's a Little Shop of Horrors. The guy who composed the music, Baden Burns, he was part of the original casting for the Billy Elliot musical. Billy's best friend in Billy Elliot. He was the first person who was cast for that. He was originally going to be the first performer of that. For various reasons, that didn't work out. But he's super ingrained.
You mean like in the short film? In your short film?
So, in my short film, the man who composed the music, Baden Burns, he was part of the original run and development of the Billy Elliot musical on Broadway.
Wow, how did you manage to get such a person?
Met him in uni.
Well, that sounds impressive, yeah.
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible to find out that, like, wait, you were part of the original cast of Billy Elliot. He didn't end up being the final actor for the best friend. They did all of the development with it. He was performing all the way up with them for like 6 months, I think. But yeah, he's been really ingrained into the musical scene. He's also just super into them in general, as am I and the other writer, Aidan Sussex. And it was just one of those things that just weirdly came together of like, why not? Why don't we just do this weird musical thing? I don't know how the actual idea of Potty the Plant himself came to be. He's a little enigma as that character.
You mentioned before that you came up with the idea. So How did you?
No. I didn't come up with the idea for Potty the Plank.
Oh, didn't. So it was.
No. That was my original writers. Yeah, I'd heard about the story and it was so unusual. It was so different. And for some reason, nobody else wanted to touch it. I don't know.
Maybe it was too challenging.
By like the ambition of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just like, why not? This sounds amazing. Why wouldn't we make this? So I think I remember specifically like going up to Aiden and just being like, so yeah, do you want to do this thing? Like,
what was his reaction?
I mean, he was happy to be honest, luckily, because he was also a part of my uni course. We were familiar with each other, so he had some confidence in my work. And yeah, luckily for me, no one else wanted to touch it. So it all fit in, really.
And how was the budget? Was it very expensive or was it
Tiny.
Really? Yeah.
Ideally, it would have been much bigger. If you've seen the short film, you can probably sort of see how like ramshackled and like taped together it is. I think it ended up costing us, I want to say 1,200. That number stuck in my head, which is incredibly cheap.
Yeah, I agree. That sounds good. And I wonder then, when you went into the third year, did you feel some pressure that you need to again create such a top film?
Oh yeah, definitely. I had to repeat performance with my final year film. And not only that, but I opted for some stupid reason to make 2 short films for my dissertation instead of 1.
Oh, really?
So I had one, which was The Langford Loop, which I worked on with Baden, which is a sci-fi film about 2 brothers struggling with their mother's decline into Alzheimer's. And there is Chopsticks, which I developed with Aiden, and that was a kung fu short film about a drunkard young woman who has to defeat her brother when her father, the head of this massive gang in Japan, is killed.
I think I've seen that one as well.
You probably have. That's another one he likes to show classes.
Oh my god, but that one looked like proper professional short film from, I don't know, some big production company or something. I remember watching it, I was like, wow. How can someone in a third year make something like this?
Thank you. We were very lucky in a lot of ways. We had our friend Reese Beale, he was DOP for it. He was lucky enough to have done some advertising work at the very least, I think during his second and third year, just short bits here and there. But it made him really, really comfortable with the camera compared to other university students, especially when we were using, pretty sure we were using Reds or Black Dragons. But when we had these, Black Magic, Reds or Black Magics, he was really comfortable using those cameras that helped. We had a fantastic stunt guy to do the fight scenes. He coordinated all of them and he worked really well with the rest of the crew and the actors, so those came off looking really slick. Mm-hmm. And things like the locations as well. I just contacted a lot of restaurants, a lot of temples, religious places, and most of the time, if you go to the right places, just mentioning that you want to film there piques their interest enough to give you special treatment. One of the big fight scenes, you have this one continuous shot fight scene. It was the lower floor of this gorgeous restaurant. There's like this floating Buddha art installment, these beautiful wooden tables and like arches, and it was absolutely gorgeous. And I only had to pay 600 quid to film for 3 days. It was dirt cheap and it was a beautiful location. And I just talked with the owners. I explained the concept of the film, which they were 100% down for. And they just loved the idea of their restaurant being shown in a film. Mm-hmm. And we made sure to negotiate everything so that all of the filming was done outside of work hours. And then they wouldn't have to worry about any revenue being lost from their day-to-day stuff. And yeah, being able to find those little gems, being able to talk to those people who also shared the love for the idea helped to just up that production value immensely.
Yeah, I can only agree because I remember watching that and the location was so beautiful. And it just made me feel like on one side, kind of motivated to create something so spectacular as this one was, but at the same time, scared because I felt like, wow, this is not possible as a student film because it just looked so professional.
Oh, we were so proud when it was finished. Do not get me wrong though, doing those films, especially doing them at the same time, burnt me out.
I'm not surprised. It's even
stressful.
more impressive. How could you make two films? Crazy.
Because I had a penance for self-punishment. But it was, I loved both of the ideas, and it was an option that was available to us. And the thing is as well is like they both, Aidan and Baden, worked together for Potty the Plan, but they wanted to make their own separate things for their third-year films, which makes sense given that they're both writers and directors. But I wanted to work for both of them. So it was just like, well, I'll just make both of your films then. I don't want anyone else making these ideas. I want to make these ideas. So I'm going to make them.
And wasn't one of them against the idea that maybe they felt like that you wouldn't focus 100% for their film and you would have to split between both, so you would kind of neglect it?
Oh, of course, there was always concerns about that, even just through my tutors, who obviously I'd have to do check-ins with them, and they'd just be like, Taliah, are you sure?
I would ask you the same.
Yeah, right? But with Baden started developing the idea for his script as soon as second year ended. Over the holiday between second and third year, he was already figuring out what his script was going to be. Same with Aidan, but to a sort of lesser extent. Aidan didn't really cement the idea until closer to December, I don't think, which was when we were pitching that anyhow. And before they'd even been pitched, as soon as I knew I wanted to work on these two films at the same time, I meticulously planned out every day for myself until the final submission. I looked at both productions separately and divided my time as equally as possible. However, of course, like the sci-fi drama had less to worry about than the kung fu film, so I'd do it proportionally. The Chopsticks was more high production than the Langford Loop, but I took like 3 days just scheduling out these 6 months to try get as much of it done as balanced and as properly as possible. And yeah, don't get me wrong, still burned me out.
But I'm sure that the reward in the end was worth it with such beautiful short films.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very proud of them.
And what was the budget of Chopsticks?
Chopsticks, I wanted to say Chopsticks was $2,000, 2.5.
Really, I would also expect much more.
I always get Langford Loop's budgets and Chopsticks mixed up. It might have been $4,000, but compared to Potty the Plan, with Chopsticks, I wanted to pay more. Like with Potty the Plan, I was getting people to act for free, and I was trying to like pull in favors wherever I could. But for Chopsticks, I wanted to at least pay minimum wage for people. I wanted to make sure that, we were getting the best sort of locations and the best sort of crew possible. So there was probably about 900 quid spent in locations. The fight coordinator, he agreed to do 10 weeks of work with us from beginning to end for 700 quid. And
you said how many weeks? 10 weeks?
Yeah, about 10 weeks of work, I think. And the negotiation for that being we went to him as just a stunt guy, and he was like, yeah, I'll do it for you for 700 quid, but I want to coordinate the whole thing. And we were like, yeah, his work was fantastic anyway. So it was just like, yeah, absolutely. Like, more than happy, because all of that stuff then he ended up using for his own short reels. And these really lovely, nice, polished pieces. And he was able to film the practice sessions, the choreography sessions. He was able to get all of this stuff filmed and have all of these different versions of it available to be viewed. And he was very happy with the work he did. We were very happy to work with him.
And how did you find risk assessment for such stunt scenes?
It was interesting. Stunt scenes, by their very nature, come with a lot more health and safety stuff. We also had some pretty involved things. There were fights where one of the actors would have an eye patch, so he'd only have half of his vision available to him. There's ones where it's like the girl she's got chopsticks in her hair. She's got really messy hair in general, like her clothes are like baggy and stuff. So we were having issues with like stuff like that catching on things. In the scenes where like there was one in a boxing ring, so there was like safety equipment as well, and we had to make sure those were properly done up. But because I'd been with them so early on in script development, every time they'd come with like a really great idea and I'd be like, oh my God, that's amazing. I'd make sure every time to point out what we're going to have to work the hardest on to make sure it gets done. So with some things, it was just putting in the grind to get the health and safety completed for them. Mm-hmm. But then for the things that we could compromise on, it was just like, yeah, do we really need it? Is this going to be worth the trouble? I think we found a great compromise in the end, though. So the fight scenes look impactful and creative.
And do you feel like they look realistic? Because as far as I remember, it looked great to me, but it was years ago, so I don't remember it that well.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't necessarily describe the fight scenes as realistic. I'd say they're sort of in the same... Oh, I don't want to put them in the same league as, but Kingsman, Secret Service, The World's End with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. So realistic movements that you can see being realistic, but they're definitely exaggerated just a little, just to make it a bit more fun and cartoony, almost like Scott Pilgrim vibes.
Yeah, that sounds great. Just a quick one. If you enjoy our podcast, please give us a review on your favorite podcast app, subscribe or share it with your friends. For more information, visit the show notes. Thank you, and back to the show. So how did these short films do at festivals?
So it was a bit of a mixed bag. Langford Loop didn't do too well. It got an award for screenwriting, which was nice, but the concept itself, because it was time travel, it was quite ambitious. Essentially, we didn't want to explain the time travel too much, but we wanted it to be enough where it made sense. It was frustrating, though. I don't know why that one didn't do as well. Chopsticks, on the other hand, fucking cleaned up. It got awards like nationally, internationally, the Royal Television Academy. It got one for Potty. There were ones for Chopsticks that did learning on screen. Chopsticks also ended up, along with all of these great festival awards, ended up opening for it was a short film showed prior to the feature film Triple Threat. When Triple Threat had its official premiere, they showed Chopsticks fans. So I honestly just put it down to the fact that the piece was just so fun. The piece was so fun and so engaging. Not that Langford Loop wasn't, but it was definitely grittier and more drama-oriented, and those do tend to be very saturated in the film festival circuit.
And are these two short films available somewhere?
Unfortunately not. They're not available for public viewing.
Why is that? Is there some reason?
I'm not too sure, to be honest. I'd hope that they become available to watch at some point. That's something that I'd have to talk to the respective writers and / directors. I'd have to talk to Aidan and Baden about it. I hope one day they're available to view online. Whether or not I'm the person to put it up, I'd like people to be able to see them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would be curious also to watch it again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can always drop you a link.
Yeah, sure. And based on your experience, can you share some advice for students or for starting filmmakers?
For students, it's so important to know that university provides so much for you. Especially the university I was at Middlesex, where we had access to great camera equipment. For Potty, I had to build a custom set. We have a TV studio, so I could build it and do everything through there. We had fantastic tutors. They're absolutely fantastic people. Some of the best people I've ever met. We had editing studios, sound recording studios, where we did all the music for Potty. And even doing my master's degree, just having the group of people around you of all of these fellow filmmakers makes the job so much easier. So it's so important to remember that when you step out into the real world, everything's going to get a lot more expensive and it's going to require a lot more of you. And God knows getting hold of money nowadays for short films is, God, as difficult as it's ever been. But with that in mind, it's also important for students to remember that you have so much at your hands now. Use it as an opportunity to be creative and experimental. It's lovely to stick with things that are safe, but when you have all of this available to you, when you can make films on such a smaller budget and have these people who are already available to work on it, take advantage of that. If you have a wacky out there idea like Chopsticks and Potty the Plant and the Langford Loop, make them, because otherwise it's going to be really difficult if it's not a traditionally marketable idea, especially.
And also, considering how much you are paying for university, at least take advantage of that.
Exactly. Like, we're already paying enough for it.
Yeah.
You might as well rinse it for all it's worth.
Yeah. And you said that you studied masters. What did you study at masters? Was it also film?
Yeah, producing for film and television, specializing in commissioning for TV. Yeah, my dissertation ended up being a TV pitch, which was fun.
Wow. So in the first place, why did you actually decide to study masters?
I always wanted to do a master's degree. It was a little bit of like pride on my part, like a bit of an ego boost that I wanted a master's degree. But it was also that, especially after lockdown, the film industry became so difficult and it just became so much harder to get a hold of certain things, especially when it came to like trying to get jobs in broadcasters. I've been trying to get a job in a broadcasters, but the competition is so intense. So part of getting a master's degree, not only for the experience, was to also have that extra level of credibility, try help and get me a permanent position in the industry that I love. And
how did you then find doing masters? Did it meet your expectations?
Masters was strange, like university 2.0, especially because of lockdown. I was going into my master's degree at 23. I must have been 23, 24. Yeah, I would have been 23. It was so weird going there as like an adult. Like when you go into university, you're a teenager. But then going into my master's degree, I was an actual established adult. And instead of it being the traditional school year, September to July, it was just one solid year, October to October. Every single month you're working on something different. And it is even more intense. The expectations are even higher. But it's one of those things, just like in any course, in any form of education, the more you put into it, the more you get out. And I was confident enough in my work and I was lucky enough to be able to put in all the time and effort that I needed to walk away with a first. So that was nice.
Oh, congrats. Well done.
Thank you.
And out of curiosity, how big was the class? How many classmates did you have?
Remarkably tiny compared to Middlesex, where, my bachelor's degree, I started off in first year. That class was probably 40, 50 people, maybe more. For my master's degree, I think it was less than 20.
And how many finished?
Less than 15.
Okay, yeah.
Definitely.
And what uni was it? It wasn't Middlesex, right?
Oh, no, I didn't do my master's at Middlesex. I did it at the MetFlim School in Ealing. It's linked up with the Ealing Broadway studios.
Why did you decide for that one?
So, MetFlim School has a really good reputation. It has a really good track record for the sort of people that come out of it. They also had really good industry links. Ealing Studios itself, it's the oldest TV studios in the world, which I thought was fantastic.
I didn't know.
And they do work all the time. It was associated with UWL as well, who have a fantastic reputation for film courses. And like during the year as well, with it being connected to the studios, there were a load of productions getting done there. The biggest one, I know the longest running one, was Don Lockwood for Netflix. Period piece, they had a dialect coach that was running there for a few months. That was fantastic. But yeah, I wanted to go for the nice prestigious name.
Yeah, that sounds great. And was it hard to get accepted there?
Luckily for me...
Or, I mean, would it be hard for a regular person?
No, don't say it like that. It's hard to say. It comes down to certain personality types. Because I was a filmmaker through and through. I got in because I had a very good backlog of footage, content that I could rely on, of short films. But I remember one of my classmates, Nathan, he came in with a bachelor's in business studies, where he just looked into marketing in general. And he wanted to translate that into film. I had another classmate, Elisa, her background, I believe, was fashion and modeling. And I had Pamadzai as well, who was music-based. And
so all different backgrounds.
Exactly. Don't get me wrong. A lot of people were from film backgrounds. But that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone has to be from a film background. It just comes down more to understanding what this industry demands of you and whether or not you're willing to take that risk. Because loving film is fantastic. Getting into film is hard work.
Yeah, very competitive industry.
Exactly. The people that we see on TV in interviews, the creators that we look up to, it's so important to remember that they're the lucky ones. That for every single one of them, there are thousands of other people.
Yeah. It's like just a tip of the iceberg. There are so many sadly unsuccessful ones.
And everyone goes into university thinking, I'm going to be the next Martin Scorsese. I'm going to be the next Steven Spielberg. And it's like, that's really lovely. The enthusiasm is fantastic. But again, these people are the 1 in a million.
Yeah, I'm afraid it is sad truth, but I have to agree.
Exactly. It's an unfortunate thing, but it's one of those things as well that you can still have a very successful career. Just because you're not a Martin Scorsese doesn't mean you can't have a fulfilling and brilliant film career.
Yeah, exactly. And during masters, was it also filming and doing the projects, or was it rather like a paperwork or essays and development?
So there was a really nice mix between the two. Because it was producing, a lot of our assignments came down to pitching, which worked for me. That was fine by me. A lot of it came down to that sort of paperworky side, but there was a lot of practical elements involved. One of the big ones was working with 3 separate businesses to create marketing and commercial material for them. Another one of those situations, all of the producers were only going to be working with 2 clients each in their groups, but one of the people in my group dropped out, so I ended up having to do 3 to cover their load. So 3 at the same time, which was fun. But we were approached by some clients to do commercial work for them, and we did some commercial work for them. I ended up doing Gauntlet Fight Academy, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Gym, the perfume brand Il Parfum, and Lizard King, which was a drag show that was going to be running in London.
Sounds exciting, but I guess you were already used to working in several projects at the same time, so it wasn't anything new. And is studying masters or course like this something you would recommend to aspiring producers or filmmakers in general?
It's something that I'd definitely recommend for producers, primarily because producers, although we have a lot of creative elements in what we do, a lot of the stuff we do is very admin, budgeting, scheduling, pitching. This is very business-oriented things. And being able to practice that within the film industry in a more comfortable environment is worth a lot. But for people who maybe are more creative-based, like the directors, even though it can be really fantastic doing master's degrees to understand what's required of their role a little more, some of them I know can find formal education restrictive and maybe a little bit oppressive in some cases on certain creative styles. But the experience alone for doing a master's was fantastic. And I love being able to tell people that I'm a master of the arts. Like, that just has so much power.
And you got the special title in front of your name.
Yeah, I have BAMA. I can put at the beginning of my name. Beginning or the end, I think.
Oh, yeah. That's good. Do you want to tell us more about the final project you did in Masters?
Oh, yeah. So in Masters, I did a TV pitch because I wanted to go into TV myself. I was contemplating, again, doing a short film and the pitch at the same time. Wow. But I was going to do one called Red Velvet. It was called Red Velvet. It was going to be this quite trippy piece about a woman killing her 2 children. But it was going to take place in this really weird American 50s happy nuclear family vibe where like the daughter does pageants and the son does football, and like you see the cracks start to form through the short film and then it finishes on this reveal. I ended up having to discard that project and work on the TV pitch instead. It required so much work. And because I want to do commissioning in television, it was just like, right, we're going to have to pick this.
I had to admit that maybe too much.
Yeah. Doing the 3 commercial films at the same time, like 2 months prior, was difficult enough. And then I'd picked Potty the Plant again to do a TV show pitch for. Honestly, I think a part of me was like a little bitter that it kept being called like a difficult project to translate onto TV, but I was like, nah, fuck you. I'm going to make this work. I spent months working on it, developing the story. It went through like 3 solid overhauls at once, but I ended up being able to adapt it in like this weird bastardization of like an early 2000s Cartoon Network kids show, but still have it musical, still have it dark comedy, still have Potty doing all of these scenarios. And as well, I do a lot of drawing, a lot of illustration. I have done since I was about 12, and I've been very involved in that side of things. I did video animation, film, and video games in college, and I animated the intro to the film.
Wow.
Yeah. I took the opening song from the short film and I animated it. I did a draft animation in the style that I wanted it to be, because for anyone who hasn't pitched a TV project, one of the options that you have is to create it's called a sizzle reel. It's essentially a short 1 to 2 minute like video that sums up your film. It gives you a taste of it, but through an actual scene. Some people make these, I've made them before by cutting together existing footage. I did that for LGBT. Some of them do it by doing they'll film maybe a scene of it, or like the first 5 minutes of the pilot, and they'll use that as the sizzle reel. And for myself, for Potty the Plant, given that it was an animated TV show, I created the animated intro just to give an idea to the people who were seeing it, an idea on the style, and it gave them a much better idea of how that format would translate and how we could abuse the world of animation and the endless possibility it brings to up the bizarre atmosphere of this.
And was it 3D animation or stop motion?
Hand-drawn.
Hand-drawn, yeah? Wow, must have had a lot of time to do all of this.
God, yeah. I think the animation alone probably took me, of the 3 months that I was developing the dissertation, the animation had to have been at least 3 weeks. And it was just rough. It was just rough animation. I didn't even get the chance to do like the nice smooth lines and the colors. It's terrifying. But it was really fun.
And is that something that everyone had to do, or you did it as extra for your pitch?
I did it as extra. For most people, I mean, I was only one of 2 producers to choose to do a pitch as opposed to a short film. But that was mainly because I already had quite a healthy backlog of short films to rely on for my show reel, which is why I took the pitch instead. So it was only a couple other producers that were doing pitches, but I believe the other person, they did a cut together of existing footage for some other TV shows and made like a trailer.
So I guess I don't need to ask, and I expect that you receive the best grade for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was very lucky. Sorry, I guess it's so awkward talking about stuff. It's so difficult.
Based on what you said, it's well deserved.
Thank you. It was a fun project. I was really proud of the work that I finished for it, even though I remember uploading it and I was so stressed out. I was so burned. I was so on the edge of insanity that I emailed my tutor just I'm sorry for what I've uploaded. It's garbage and I know it. And he replied just Taliah, what are you on about? Great. Stop. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I was the highest performing student of that year, which was...
Well done, yeah. And to get an idea of it, you developed the pitch. So basically, is it something that it's a complete pitch that I can take and pitch to someone to get it commissioned? Just to understand what is the pitch or what person needs to do with that for someone who doesn't know anything about this.
So pitch is actually the final stage of selling something. The first step when it comes to pitching TV pilots is coming up with a pitch deck, which is essentially a paper version. They tend to be much wordier. They tend to be a lot longer. Pitch decks can be anything from 2 sheets to 120. It can be completely dense because it doesn't just include the story. You will have separate sheets for the characters, for the world development, for the costuming, for locations, for all of these different things. You'll incorporate every single part of this TV show and you'll make it very, very clear the intention for it. Most pitch decks, I think, probably aim towards the 20-page mark, but it all depends on the project. yeah, something like New Girl compared to Game of Thrones is going to be completely, massively different.
Yeah, of course.
But more often than not, you'll send like an elevator pitch or a 1 or 2 page pitch deck first. Then you'll send them a full pitch deck of however many pages that'll be. And then you'll do a final pitch, which will be, you in person, PowerPoint presentation, sizzle reel if you've got it, and fingers crossed they buy it.
Yeah, I mean, sounds like amazing work. I wonder, how did you start planning your way into industry after master's?
After master's, if I'm honest, after master's, I actually took a little break. It was a really full year was my master's, and
I think it's understandable.
Out of me. I graduated in October. I graduated in November, and I took a few months after that, honestly, just to take a breather, to wind myself down a little bit. But in the beginning of this year, even though I was like, no, I'm going to rest, I'm going to take a step back, I started working on 2 TV pitches, started meeting with a couple of writers. One of them was LGBT. The other one is a separate concept that we're still sort of playing about with, so I won't give out many details on that one. And with another one of my writers, we're talking about a fun little short film, a whodunit sort of situation that I'd like to get made. That one, again, is still early developments, but I think it would be really fun. It just came out of this idea, this like joke of it being like New Year's Eve, and everyone does the whole like 3, 2, 1, Happy New Year, and someone drops dead. Like, we thought that'd just be something fun, something cool that we could explore. So we've got one of them, and I think I've got another short film that I'm working on with another writer. But these have been some really lovely projects to work and develop with. It takes a lot of time. I feel like that's another thing people forget about when they leave uni is, because you're going to be looking for investment from other people. And especially when people are like, oh yeah, I'll get funding from the BFI. Thousands of people are going to be doing the same thing. So you've got to develop your projects so well and so far in, but also to a point where you're not going to feel upset if they ask you to change things, because it's very rare that they're going to take your raw project and go, yes, I want this exactly as it is written on screen now, here is the money for it. There will more often than not say people being like, can we take this bit out? Can we change this? So you've got to be attached to a project to put all of that work in, yet not so attached that you're like dissuaded by the idea of changing that project.
Yeah, understand. Because I guess they can tell you, if you don't do that, there are thousands of people waiting in a line. Exactly. So we can just pick someone else.
Exactly. They're going to be completely heartless like that, especially if you come across as a university student or someone who's like fresh out of education sort of thing. You tend to be able to tell that, though, through the ideas. Those tend to be your edgy university, emotional films, Sundance, Cannes. You're going to see hundreds of them.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. Well, can you share not maybe university advice, but some advice or tips or tricks in general from your career?
From my career, honestly, one of the best things I've learned is patience. The film industry moves very, very quickly. But in the beginning of your film career, it's going to move slow as fuck. It is going to put pressure on you. You're going to feel stressed. You're going to be like, oh my God, no, I should have done this at this time. I want to be like directing my first feature film by the time I'm 30. And it's like, for a start, do not set yourself a deadline, because you're setting yourself up for failure. Because if you do not meet that deadline, you are going to completely lose your motivation. You're going to feel crushed, and you're going to feel like, oh my God, why didn't I do it? Oh, I'll never be a filmmaker, and dissuade yourself. But also, these steps, building these connections, takes time. It's baby steps. So you just have to be patient, and you just have to keep in your head, my time will come. Doing the work, keep putting in the effort, build up your tolerance for rejection, and just keep making those baby steps. It's difficult starting out. It's always going to be difficult. Sometimes you're going to have brilliant ideas that never get off the ground for like 8 years. And that's just one of those things. But it's important to stay patient, bide your time, play the long game.
So what do you do when you face such a situation, when you've got doubts or you're not patient, maybe sometimes?
Oh, I have those times for sure. I keep forgetting that I'm still a young adult and I'm not like 40. I keep being like, oh my God, I'll never be in this industry. It doesn't even want me in it anyway. The thing that helped me, honestly, was like, having a very supportive partner. Because when I felt real down about whether or not I'd be able to sell my first TV show or what have you, he was so supportive. And he was like, I wouldn't blame you if you stopped trying to get into the film industry, but I'd be disappointed if you didn't at least try every avenue first. And also having a part-time job helps, because God knows I do not want to, like, because if I'm not in the film industry, then it's like, okay, but I want to, like, progress in the part-time job I'm in now. No, I don't want a regular office job. The idea of being in insurance or banking or, like, I don't know, because it's like, at the end of the day, if you want to be in this industry hard enough, it makes it much easier to get in. It doesn't guarantee it, but having the motivation, knowing it's something that you want to be in and that you're willing to put all of this work and time and effort in, then it's worth all of that trouble. And that's what separates probably the casuals from the serious, especially if, like me, they're from backgrounds that, like, I can't fund my own stuff. I don't have that money. Like, you'll get the people coming in who are like, oh yeah, my dad will fund this or whatever. And they get these, like...
Then they start crowdfunding and it's done in a few days.
Yeah, exactly. Crowdfunding as well. People think it's this easy thing. That's another thing that frustrates me sometimes with the whole, like, oh yeah, we'll just get funding. And it's another thing that's so saturated. And if people aren't interested, if your work isn't good enough, there is 1,000 other projects that are. Yeah,
exactly. And you end up, you don't want to beg your family or friends to donate there.
Yeah.
But usually they end up being people who donate the most, I think. Or at least back at uni, that was like that.
Oh, yeah. 100% I'd agree. I was lucky that my dad helped. I think he pledged 500 quid for each of my short films and my dissertation films at uni. So in third year, I got, I think, 500 quid from my dad for each of them, which, compared to everything was only a small amount, but it's...
But if I donated so much money and I saw the results, I would be happy for them because such amazing projects, well-spent money.
Thank you. It felt well spent.
Just to respect your time, do you want to promote yourself, maybe your work, yourself, where people can follow you?
Well, for the moment, if anyone wants to support the work that I've uploaded before, then I know you said that you'd pop in the link for Potty the Plant in the description below, which would be fantastic. They can also check my LinkedIn page, which is just /Taliah Lamont. And they can find my showreel, they can find all of my other work and my experience. Those would be the best places to find me. Otherwise, they can look up Taliah Lamont on YouTube, find me that way, or even through Instagram if they want to. I mean, that's more of my personal stuff, but I'm on Instagram at Talibops, Talibops. It was a nickname someone gave me. But yeah, if they want to find me, then find Potty the Plant and LinkedIn.
I will share it all. And I will also have a look because you made me curious about your work, your projects and showreel, so I will check it out as well.
Oh yeah, by all means. I've got the commercial work that I talked about there in there as well.
Yeah, that sounds exciting. So I would just like to thank you. I must say that I didn't expect such ambitious and inspiring projects. So you've got great credits. It was nice to get to know you and to have a chat with you. And I will wish you good luck with your another amazing projects.
Fantastic, you too. I've had an absolutely lovely time. I hope everything goes well and that you just have a lovely time in general. Hopefully we can catch up again soon.
Of course. I feel like there's still plenty of stuff to discuss. So thank you and we'll stay in touch.
Definitely.
Thank you. See you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Produced By. Subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app, leave a review, or send us your feedback. For more information about the host, links from the episode, and ways to connect with us, visit the show notes. If you know someone who would be an ideal guest for our podcast, please get in touch. Thank you and see you soon.